So what I'm going to get you to do first off is that you do an opening with your cards. Now, do you know how to do that? It's like a person. And if you can imagine a pentagram or a star shape, 5-pointed star shape, what you're going to do is start at one foot, go to the head, go to the other foot, go to the left arm, go to the right arm, go back to the foot again. And you do that for the whole deck. Without you shuffling or putting yourself in there, you'll be doing this before any client, every client. So what you're doing effectively is banishing or erasing or disappearing the people that were there before you.
Are we shuffling after we've done the pentagram, or just leave as is?
You don't shuffle. I might give you all the interpretations for your month ahead of what's going to be the central focus. I might do all of that before we open that up as to why, because you might want to know how I'm seeing that. Just give your cards a good shuffle. Quite often the client will say, they'll just keep shuffling. They want you to give them an order. And I don't treat adults by giving them orders. So basically, I always tell my clients, you shuffle till they feel ready. I'm not going to tell you what to do. When you finish shuffling, I'll get them to cut them in 3 cards, in 3 piles. But in your case, you're going to shuffle them until they feel like there's enough of you in there. Don't get all mystical on me. Okay. And there is mysticism in this, but not from your point of view. Okay. You just want to be completely null and neutral. And also your clients need to be null and neutral, even though they're going to have a lot of background stories about what they think they're going to want to know. You're not going to want them to do that. You're going to want to be in the zero space that allows for the tarot to do the talking. And by the way, it's probably important at this stage to say the cards are not tarot. Tarot is something that's inexplicable.
Just from the top?
First one, turn it towards me. All right, that's it. Oh, who's having a 4th birthday?
Yes, my Matilda on the 9th of the 11th.
So can everybody have a look at that and see how really simple that is? This is really important to realize that even though there's 3 cards on the table, I'm certainly not going to read them individually. It doesn't work that way. That's all it says. So somebody close to you is going to have a 4th birthday party.
Yes.
A kid.
Yes.
And that 4th birthday party, by the look of things in there, it sort of talks about a water sign child, but it may not be a Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio child. I'll just say a kid having a 4th birthday party, because that's exactly what it is. Can anybody see what I'm looking at? There also, just a slight twist on that, because of the 4 of Pentacles, that can be a birthday party that's happening in 4 days, 4 weeks, 4 months, but it certainly won't be 4 years. The next person's, I need to see your hands, lay them out.
Oh, okay.
So if you...
Okay. Are we thinking of a month while we're shuffling?
No, you're not thinking of anything. Your brain needs to...
Gotcha.
God, awesome.
Okay, yep.
It's like Tinder. That's Tinder. That's like, where's the sex? But it's actually an over the phone or online discussion that's sexy. Okay. At this stage in time, what I'm doing, because we want to make this quite snappy, is I'm ignoring the actual star signs or approximate star signs of each of the individuals that have been showing up. But funnily enough, I do see the pattern so far, because so far there's all cups. So I don't know whether they're talking about one person or whether we're actually looking at each individual. But Tan, yours was cups. Yeah, there. Wow. If it is personal for you, Joanne, it's an incredible map. It's an incredible map that shows a sense of absolute awakening and an absolute awakening into your feral beauty. So,
that's fantastic.
Okay, so that's all that says.
Okay.
And why I use the word feral beauty, because there's nothing stylized about it. It's the Empress is very grungy and earthy and sensual and mossy and rocks and river and so on and so forth. So it could be your entire ecology. But fuck, it's a happy map. Oh, Joe entered. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's go back to the next one. That's a lot of crap taking place behind the scenes to do with money.
Yep, it's
Should I
mine.
go? Oh, go on. You go.
There we go.
All right. Whose is that?
Jackie,
I don't know. What beast are you?
this one?
No, 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 no. I don't look at one card. A form of investment is going to pay off big time. That may not be realized yet, but will be realized within the month. A form of investment is going to pay off big time. Now, that investment, by the way, are we looking at money? Are we looking at security? Are we looking at property? All of those things are relative, but we don't know until what is it that we invest time and energy into? What is it that we invest in? It does look in that instance, because the one thing I'm very aware of, and I tell all my clients this, that I don't do the mystical. I just tell them who's going to get born, who's going to get killed, whether they're going to go broke, whether they're going to move house, whether they're going to travel over water. The last thing that any of us do as a reader is to, in any way, I mean, occasionally I'll give it a little tad of personal advice, but then, it took me 40 odd years before I decided that I was okay to do that. The only reason, Belinda, that Shayoti has laid out those cards in a photograph is because she's not online. If you're online, then I don't want to see it in the images close. Usually I want to see a person's hands lay those cards up. There's a guy around you can lose weight or get rid of an addiction, and he's going to feel much better in a month. Oh, that's really, that's sort of pretty intense. Go back again. Just breathe into the microphone or something so that you can stay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, then what that is that is a deception in association with a relationship is going to expose itself, and you would have been right. Okay, leave it there so we can go back and people can see what I've seen. It's really hard for me not to go into explaining how I see all this, but bam.
Will you be able to go into what you just said?
I'll give it a go, attempt to explain my process and how I have to completely erase the concept of seeing three separate things and seeing one thing, which is what I do. Okay.
Okay, you ready for mine? Can you see those?
Yeah. All right. So pretty much that's talking about the positivity and do I like the word positive? No, I don't. It's a binary term. The vavavoomness of a relationship and the connection with home and family. It's just beautiful. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Who did we start off? We started with Kim. You're going.
Can you hear me?
In that we saw the birthday party or the celebration for the kid.
Yes.
That took place. Where this is significant is that there may be a countless number of other events that are going to happen for you in the month.
Yeah.
And this is your central theme. I don't know whether all of you are involved in the Witchcraft 500 group, but in there we discussed the idea of Tiferet being the center of the Ruach. Yes?
Yes.
This is your Tiferet for the month, so that there can be all kinds of chaos and discord, volcanic eruptions, explosions, meteor strikes, rapes, court cases, upheavals, car accidents, you name it, but they're not going to be the central theme of your month. The central theme of your month is going to be this one event, and this one event, even sometimes in the midst of chaos, this one event is your sanity, is your focus, is your tiferet. It's the very central theme. Everything else is going to be superfluous, and you can respond to the other events, but they are certainly not what tarot is saying. Don't get trapped by the other events.
No, this is the most important thing.
Or don't put any energy into the other events, rather than, because if we were doing a whole layout, you'd get a completely different series. But with these three, it's like a punch in the destiny. Okay, so that we can take that apart to a degree, and you can see what I'm looking at. But what I tend to do, because of, and I think, does this come with experience? It didn't with me, because I didn't think I'd be doing this after 1 week. So I just would look at the cards that all these lines of people would have laid out, and I'd do them 10 minutes, I just go bleh. And what I found over time is that the more one thinks about the individual cards, the less you get. The more trapped you become. We tend to become myopic. And we do that. We can become myopic in association with any form of stress, any form of excitation, and any form of external stimuli. So what we're attempting to do here is not get caught in any external stress. So this is your central thing. And to go beyond that means if you keep that as a form of ceremonial understanding, then you don't get caught in all the other stuff that's going to happen in the next month. A Four of Wands can be spring equinox. It can be going to a festival. It can be a restaurant. It can be a gathering of folk for a sense of fun. It can be just pretty much a celebration. The essence of that card is the word celebration. The next card that's laid out there is a Page of Cups, which is a child. And in this instance, it does seem to be a water sign child, Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio. But you may note that I didn't say that. And that's because very often the cups in tarot and this discernment represent a beloved, not a star sign. And very often you'll get their emotional connection that goes with that. So with cups, again, you're looking at an artistic personality. And if that artistic personality becomes out of balance by becoming either a bastard or a goody two-shoes, then that person's no longer an artistic personality because they're no longer in association with themselves. Now that Four of Pentacles, it's not always a time sequence. Like the Four of Swords is not always a time sequence, but 50% of the time it's a time sequence. One example was a person that was dying in the Narang hospital, and she asked me to come and read her cards, and she was on life support and she was funny. I didn't think it was funny retrospectively. It's something that I will never do again. I do warn you about holding the hand of a person who's about to die, because with transference, you can end up feeling their disease and experiencing their disease. So this person couldn't shuffle the cards because they were on life support, and they were sending messages through me to the people in the room. There was about 20 people in the room, and they couldn't shuffle, of course. So I got the message, Jono is the only one here who's qualified to do that. So I said to the room full of people, who's Jono? And this young guy, about 24, 25, puts his hand up and he said, that's my name. And I said, why is she saying you're the only person qualified here to shuffle the cards on her behalf? And he said, I just come back from Reno. I do blackjack for a living. Weird shit like that. It gets funnier. So he shuffled the cards and they laid out. It was a Nine of Swords, which is no shit Sherlock, she's sick. A death card, which meant she was going to die. And a Four of Pentacles. And I said, well, you're dead in 4 seconds. I looked at the clock on the wall, well, not 4 seconds, 4 minutes, 4 hours, 4 days, 4 weeks, 4 months. So that's not going to last. It looks like you're going to last about 4 minutes or 4 hours. I heard back from her sister. I left there, got very, very sick because she had brain and lung cancer. She died exactly 4 hours later. And I also found out from her sister that she'd been diagnosed with the cancer exactly 4 months beforehand. So it had a double whammy in there, which was all rather interesting. If it's not showing up as a time sequence, it can be very much a deposit or somebody who's sitting on something. But we can do that when I get around to doing the whole of the suits for you, because I've only done swords so far. But that Four of Pentacles, you can see even by looking at it that it's this little dude who's all in close, you see, that closeness. Now also that Four of Pentacles, you're going to get that turn up for someone who's about to do a Bachelor of Arts or Science or Music or whatever. So it's a 4-year duration of study. Now it's not medicine, obviously, because that's usually a 7 year, but that 4 years is quite often when a person's heading to a Bachelor. That Four of Pentacles will also show up as a deposit for a property or anything. So it's a small amount of an Ace of Pentacles. Ace of Pentacles is the full amount. Four of Pentacles is a small amount. Somebody else come in? Okay, Joanne, let me have a look at what you've got. I want to sort of take them to pieces. You've turned them around.
Have I?
Yep, you had the yep.
Because I'd packed them away and then I heard you say.
And because I'll also remember, and this is another thing that you're going to need to do as readers is to remember. You don't have to be readers, I suppose. You can just turn up every once a month and I'll give you a month's worth of prophecy. I'm cool with that. But for those who are interested in taking that further, you see, when there's in Australia, particularly, and we could go country by country, it really is irrelevant. But in Australia, when that star card and that Empress turns up, we're looking at the equivalent of Kakadu National Park.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We're looking at an incredibly vast environment of intense and feral beauty. How do I know that? Well, fucked if I know. I'll take it apart to a degree, but it was for you as your month's experience. So that experience is you may go and get a facial. You may go and get your hair done. You may look in the mirror and go, fuck, I'm gorgeous. All of those things, that realization, that central theme is exquisite. Now, even more so, we can go back into there. So, Joanne, you might need to sort of like breathe into the.
Okay, yep.
Another quick look at that. So that 9 of Cups there is what's traditionally called the wish card, W-I-S-H. So it's a sense of wish fulfillment, a really strong sense of satisfaction. When it's out of balance, it can be a person who's just smug, who's just fat and doesn't care if they're just going to eat ice fovers for the rest of their lives. So they can get out of balance, but the cards around them will tell you when they're out of balance. In this instance, there is nothing out of balance with this wish card. There's this sense of gratitude and that moment that you get in your gut where you go, ooh, or you taste something exquisite and you get a shock because it was so exquisite. Well, that's the 9 of Cups. That's when somebody touches you with such tenderness that it's unbelievable. So the star card and the Empress together, they really can't be taken apart. In an instance like this, taking them apart is almost vulgar. But I mean, what I'll do is to sort of do that. The star card means the star card could be film, visuals, astrology, wide open spaces, clarity, but all those things mean nothing. Do they really? They don't actually give you a prophecy if you were to take one at a time. It doesn't tell you anything. Like the Empress can be beauty, sensuality, eroticism, woman, but it'll also show up with endometriosis and somebody who's having an abortion. So it really doesn't fit there. It also shows up with many men who like to cross dress or who like to wear makeup. And Freddie Mercury would be a perfect example of the Empress card. Okay, just so that you can get a bit of a context. If I was to remove the star card from that, it'd say a happy mother.
Okay, yep.
If I was to remove the Empress card from that, I would say a good filming session.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yep.
But put them together and it's a completely different story. So what it is saying that you're an environment or an ecosystem and you're going to be very pleased or happy with that.
Oh, that's so cool. Yep.
So can you see how those 3 are put together rather than separate?
Yes.
They say one smash hit something. Okay, let's get on to the next person. Okay. That's a very interesting 3. And again, I'm having difficulties seeing them. Just talk again, please, Jackie.
Okay. Yep.
What's really interesting is that those 3 begin with the Chariot card. The Chariot card, if you're climbing a 120 floor building by the staircase, and the Chariot card is when you get halfway there. So there's a real sense of victory in having achieved so much, but it also says there's just as much hard work yet to come. I'll very often have the Chariot card turn up for somebody who's just finished their PhD, who's got the job that they want, who has written the first draft of their book. For it's 3 separate examples in this particular instance. So if you can get the drift that there's the Chariot card is an earned victory. Okay. Whereas there's 6 of Wands, which did show up somewhere in somebody's map. Did somebody have the 6 of Wands? I saw it earlier.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so that's an ordinary victory. That's the kind of victory that just happens. It's like, hey, yeah, did that. It's like crossing the street without getting knocked over. That's that's that sense of a really comfy victory, whereas the Chariot is an earned victory. And in the instance where we're looking at Jackie's 3 cards, it's talking in there about an investment. Now, I could just say money with the Ace of Pentacles, but that's not what I've got to go with my first intuition that sees the investment and then the growth. So if you look at the Ace of Pentacles is the roots of the power of money. If, for example, it turns up on a Tree of Life map, it's going to, and in the sphere of Uranus, it's very often nowadays, it's working with cryptocurrency. And the first time I saw that in the sphere of Uranus on a Tree of Life, I said to the woman concerned, I said, you're going to be dealing in crypto and making lots and lots of money. And she is. So, and again, it depends on what it falls with. But that Ace of Pentacles sitting right beside the 7 of Pentacles. 7 of Pentacles is harvest. Now, it can also represent getting a very uncomfortable growth. But it can also represent thrush. Also represent mold. Let's not for a moment think that it's automatically going to be a productive card, because it isn't, falling on what it does. But when you add the Chariot card to the Ace of Pentacles, and the Ace of Pentacles being the roots of the foundation of money, is this very solid security base that gets built on. That security is long overdue and well earned. I can say about those 3, and some of them could be considered to be productive looking, and some of them, but all experience is experience, not necessarily healthy to say it's productive or it's detrimental. It really isn't healthy to think about these things in that way. And your clients will say, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? Don't answer. The one thing with all of your 3 cards today is it hasn't happened yet. So you actually don't know what I'm saying. And
like when you say talk or breathe into your microphone, is that because you're working, it helps you see more?
Because I always read the future. We've had these discussions before about past, present, and future, and how there's no such thing. So we unfold. Everything that's happened up until a second ago has already happened, so it's in the past. Everything that I haven't said yet, now, too late, it's in the past.
Yeah.
With tarot, you are constantly reading the next important or seemingly important. I mean, nothing's unimportant. Or it wouldn't turn up. Hi, I'm Mama. Right? So cats and dogs, by the way, love tarot. So do small babies. They'll sit on the edge of a person's, particularly if they're predicted. What haven't we looked at? Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Taking them to pieces.
Do you want to have a look at mine next?
Yeah. Who am I looking at? Belinda. Okay, so taking that to pieces. Again, I'm not dealing with star signs per se. Yeah. Under sort of like within a reading, that may be the King of Wands. It doesn't say whether or not it's a gendered person, because this is really important when you get around to reading, that you stop a binary information, that you just learn or train yourself out of binary technology, so that King of Wands can be a fire sign person, Sagittarius, Leo, or Aries. So it's either you or it's somebody close to you.
Yeah.
And how that's that person.
Yeah.
So it's about a person. The Lover's card is always a card of choice, unless it's the lungs, unless just describing a property. Because it can describe a property that's got a duplex or a terrace house, because there's a sense of 2, very much with the Lover's card. So it's either side by side or up and down in this instance. It is a card of choice. It sometimes will represent lovers, but usually only if it's got relationship cards like the Hierophant or the 2 of Cups with it, or the 3 of Cups if it's polyamory. Then it will show up as intimate partnerships. But in this particular instance, Lover's card is choice, because the actual card itself is representative, as many of the way shower cards are in tarot. You're going to see 3 pillars. it's interesting to sort of like get way shower 22 way shower cards out and have a look at how many have 3 pillars. There's heaps of them. The Lovers card shows the 3 pillars. So you've got Boaz and you've got Joachim and you've got that central pillar. So it sees a sense of balance that it's got to do with an either or decision that needs to be made or has been made or gets made. So it's a card of choice. And what that choice in this particular instance is associated with the 9 of Pentacles. And the 9 of Pentacles is, as many of you know, is one of my 2 favorite cards in the pack in 78. I've got 2 favorite cards, the 9 of Pentacles and the 9 of Wands. The 9 of Pentacles, because I'm a minimalist, so it's personal. I don't like a lot of junk. I like to get rid of it all the time. I just like to keep whatever I consider streamlined. Enough has been achieved that one more thing will just be one more thing and it will end up being clutter. So the 9 of Pentacles is this sense of quality, not quantity. Where do I come to the idea of addiction? It doesn't enter into the cards. It's looking at all 3 of them and I see the pattern. The pattern is this person who's made a choice for a certain kind of way of life. And therefore, you've got to go beneath the singular and look at the whole thing. I think we've been trained of ourselves as a species, and we tend to think in binary terminology because we've been taught to do as such. Belinda, you still have, thank you. We've been taught to do as such. So people are taught or think that they need to look at the cards individually, and that really limits you. Okay, so it's looking at a holistic environment. If you're working in a job in a big corporation and you know the entirety of the corporation and how the entire corporation runs, you're in a much more satisfactory and indisposable or indispensable position than if you only know bits. And what you've probably noticed over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years is that corporations and companies, etc., never let you know the whole lot. You're only supposed to stick in your own little tiny area. And that's because they don't want you to know all of it, because if you know all of it, you hold a modicum of, for lack of a better word, power as to how the whole works. And when that happens, of course, you can cause revolution. Yeah. Otherwise, they can hold. It's like in law where there may be sort of like 50 terms and conditions. If you haven't read them all because you just think you're going to tick the box, you're going to miss something, and that's going to come back to bite you later. That happens with insurance. It happens with property. It happens with people who take on loans. It's like, don't tell them everything. Just let them make the mistake. So we're intentionally kept stupid as a sort of cattle. Cattle are not stupid. They're just trapped. And we are in many instances, unless you know enough and more than enough.
Yeah, I've just got to get my camera where you can see them.
Okay, so taking those 3 apart, the Hierophant card is really interesting because there are 1 or 2 what I call religious cards in the pack, and 1 or 2 only, and one of them is the Hierophant and the other is the Devil card. And as such, they can be really sort of a bit on the discombobulating side. First of all, I'll have a look at that Hierophant. The Hierophant card essentially means marriage. This is important to understand, that when a company goes into a trade deal with another company, it's a marriage.
Okay.
It's important to realize that when their bills get put on the fridge and you're renting with somebody else and you've signed a lease together, then you're in a marriage. Anything whereby there is a legal document between 2 parties is considered a marriage in tarot. But it will also definitely show up for the maritals, what's typically a marital state between anybody who signs a vow. That's where it's got that religious connotation. Interestingly enough, if I can put in a little caveat, little wonderful, interesting caveat here. I don't remember the year. I had the Hierophant. I had a Hierophant, a Page of Cups. This was one series of 3. And then there was another series of 3 that backed this up. Hierophant, a Page of Cups, and a Sun card. And this was in a map that was associated with the Grove. These are all my new words in the new book. And at the Grove, interestingly enough, one of the foundations, I can't remember the third card, but I can remember the second card was the Ace of Pentacles, and the the first card was the Eight of Pentacles, which is work. And the second card, as we talked about earlier, to do with Jackie, was money, or the roots of the power of money, or security, etc. And I looked at those, and with tarot, you tend to skim across a map. Once you've skimmed across a map, the whole of it goes boom in consciousness. So I said to this person, this wouldn't make sense unless you're a priest, unless you work in Catholicism as a priest. And he was a bishop. Now, how that happened, weirdly enough, I only spent 1 year as a Catholic when I was 11, but I remember the symbolism quite strongly, and the symbolism of a Eucharist was in this big sun shape, and it was considered the age of Pisces, the era of Christianity. And in the middle of this sun-shaped thing, there was this blob of white, which is this whole idea of a Eucharist being blood and flesh of a person who died 2,000 years ago. And the Hierophant card also represents religion. So put those together and I've got Catholicism. Simple. And the fact that the person concerned had an Eight of Pentacles and an Ace of Pentacles, that's their work. Their work was rock solid. So I could see them working in the field of Catholicism. Got it? I think I go to the next level, go, you're a priest, and he goes, I'm a bishop. Can we go back to your map so they can have a look again, please, Joe?
Oh, can you see that? No, no.
Next one again, we have the Nine of Pentacles. You see that Nine of Pentacles, my favorite card in the pack? It can represent a married couple, or the marriage in itself being... It's really interesting when you put it with the Ten of Cups, because the Ten of Cups is home. Now that can mean a lot of things. It can also, it can represent the hearth, H-E-A-R-T-H. So it's got that sense of like, in Irish, that's called Crabeli, which is heart home. It's wherever your central fire is, wherever you cook your food, wherever people gather, that sense of that. So it's got to do also with the idea of a gathering, but not like the Four of Wands. The Four of Wands is more of a public event. The Ten of Cups is more when people gather in the home of that couple who've signed the deal to do with themselves in any form of relationship that involves money. So there is going to be a really contained, with that Nine of Pentacles, a contained celebration of the relationship that's got to do with clan.
That's probably
around, or is this
yes.
mirror?
Sorry, darling.
Okay, so there's this woman discussing sex. Forget the woman for a moment. We've got a Queen of Cups, but that could be also a bloke. Okay, and again, it's very, very easy to get into definitions of what defines a woman and what defines a man, and it's just rubbish. So it's really necessary to be aware of that, and to not put the emphasis onto a king or a queen being a certain kind of a way, because they're just not. And so the beloved person in this instance is online doing their thing with Tinder. And the Seven of Wands is, now it will represent education and a teacher. Doesn't matter if it's got to do with an Emperor card, which is education or autocracy or traditional forms of education. Education's education, doesn't have to be through that. So it's somebody teaching somebody something, or it's somebody talking. When you see that person standing up there with the wand in their hand, and they can't see any other faces, can you, in that card? So they're talking at rather than talking with. That'll happen with a lecture. It'll happen when you're talking on a phone, but you can't see the person. It'll also happen when you're talking to someone who's not listening. But in this instance, it's very much the kind of a situation that I'll get when I do see Tinder. So because the Two of Cups represents sex, does it represent anything else? Not usually.
Completely the right order, because I wrote it down and I took it.
So again, with that Six of Wands, we talked about the Six of Wands compared to the Chariot. There are some cards that represent each other in sort of major or minor ways, or in more pronounced or more complex ways than others. And the Six of Wands is one of them. The Six of Wands is the less complicated form of the Chariot. So it doesn't require hard work. It's just that sense of you got to cross the road without getting run over. Whereas the Chariot's like, oh, okay, now what? Okay, ready for the next 10 years. The moon card in itself can represent anything from image to hormones, self-deceit or deceit. As Sylvia Plath said, through a glass but darkly, so that the full image is not transparent. So you've got a sense of opaqueness with the moon card. The imagery in there is really irrelevant. So I mean, some people say, oh, the dog and the wolf, and I go, yeah, whatever. And then of course we talked about the Hierophant being a deal.
Hmm.
And in this instance, what it says is that you'll have been right about the deal being deceitful, the relationship being deceitful. When a person finds out that they were deceived, there's a sense of relief happens. Up until then, you can be gaslit. You can go through all kinds of emotional states. Going, Is it me? Is it me? And in this relationship, is it me? Is it just me doing this? Am I feeling that? Is the person right? Are they telling me the truth? Am I such a fucking idiot? All those feelings of self-blame, that gets erased with that Six of Wands. We can all learn from what tarot has to say, with the erasure of the deceitful marriage, and even the idea of the deceitful contract. When it's erased, it's do we learn from these experiences? Good idea.
So you didn't go back to Coyote's, the one she sent?
I've got Coyote's 3 cards there. Where am I? I mean, it's many things, but to me, of course, it's really got to do with the conflict that most people can't see, to do with money. No, the distribution of money. And very often the 10 of Pentacles, by the way, is a rented or a leased dwelling, or a place that's going through renovation, which is not in this instance. It could be a rented or released dwelling. It can also very much be the village, and it can also very much be a bank, particularly if it turns up on the Stargate map in the sphere of Binar. Then it's very much going to be an institution of money. Now, bearing that in mind, the Two of Swords is what you can't see. The Two of Swords is the journey card. The way shower card is the High Priestess card. So like the Six of Wands and the Chariot card, these are another parallelism. So you've got this, the Two of Swords is the parallel to the High Priestess card. Again, there's both a sense of not seeing, a sense of not looking or not seeing. It can also represent that which is hidden. Do I read from left to right? Yes, I do. I have not been trained to read from right to left. So I read from left to right always. And once you've established a pattern as a reader, you just tend to stick with that because it just makes life so much easier. It's a way I read a book. The Two of Swords is hidden, so you can't see what's going on. But that Five of Swords is conflict. That Five of Swords is a fight. Now, it's not a pleasant fight. A pleasant fight would be a Five of Wands, because there would be a sense of a communal conflict. And the good example, for example, I ran Clan Fina. It was a specifically women's group of staff fighters in the Byron region. There was 15 women learning to kill each other with staves. Anyway, so there's the Five of Swords. So you can see with that 10 of Pentacles, there's all this drama about money, or the house of money, or how money's being distributed, or whatever else, even to do, and with money coming, money going, which will happen with the 10 of Pentacles, with renting or leasing, because you've got it can be a shop. But you see, the heaviness of these 3, and they are heavy, is that like domestic violence, like pedophilia, it happens where the majority of people can't see it. So it's actually happening behind the scenes. So that the person with these wouldn't necessarily know what this was yet because it hasn't exposed itself. Or the person concerned that you're reading for is trying to keep this violence and this conflict unavailable for sight. A lot of people in business will do that. They'll hide what's going on at home. So they should keep it out of the workplace, but they don't. They can bring it in. But in this particular instance, it's going on behind the scenes. So that's how those three are. Because the Two of Swords is I can't see. It can be looking within. It can be a form of silence. 10 of Pentacles is the movement of money, as I said before. 5 of Swords is always conflict.
Yeah, I've got a question line. I've got your book here, and sometimes we just take cards and we flick to it. What is the best way to learn using your book? Like, do you front to back, or just flick open a card, or how would you?
Any book on tarot is limited. Because this is a way of learning, a way of doing that. Really, you can get a basic, definitely can get a basic foundation in weirdly enough, the two of the books together, the Tarot Theory and Practice and Advanced Tarot, probably pretty necessary together for a learning process.